We need to work on the 7 main kinds of stems or binyanim of the perfect verb. Now again, they're all, except for kal, they're all named for the paradigm word pa'al. And so different things happen to the pa'al under these different stems or binyanim. So for example, we have the nifal, and as you can see there's a noon attached to the beginning of that. And then the second class, and these are all intensive because when there is not a ayin in the middle letter, they all take a dagesh, as we'll see presently. So this family or group we would call the PL, the pual, and the hit pa'el to refer to these. And PL typically, if there's both a kal form and a PL form of the root, this would be a more intensive or complex. And then a pual would be the passive of whatever the PL is, and hit pa'el would tend to be reflexive or passive as well. And then we have the hif'il and the hof'al. And again, hof'al has a kamat katon or a kamat hatuf, so it's that O sound. And hif'il is causal, and the hof'al, that's the passive of whatever the hif'il is. Now it's Greenberg that gives us these families, the kal family, the PL family, and the hif'il family. And I strongly suggest to think through the way that the verbs work like this, because the 3 main verbs are the kal, the PL, and the hif'il, and then there's lesser uses of these other ones, but they sort of fit the paradigm of that particular family. We'll take a moment to work through some of the main comparisons. Here we have the kal, katal, katala, katalta, katalt, katalti, katalu, kataltem, katalten, katalnu. Then you'll notice the nifal over here, and these each have the noon prefixed to the beginning of the root. And when you look at the end of the word, this is what's so important about memorizing the kal, they all have exactly the same suffixes as the kal do. So the only real difference is recognizing what happens by putting a noon on the beginning of the main form katal that we've already memorized. So then we have all the same kinds of things, right? This is niktal, he was killed. So it's 3ms, it has the same subject, third person masculine singular, and nifal typically is either going to be in passive or reflexive. So if we come across the term niktal, we would either translate that in the passive, he was killed, or he killed himself, depending on the context. Next, notice the PL. Here we have the kal and the PL, and again, all the endings of the PL, all of the suffixes that contain the pronoun information, 3ms, 3fs, 2ms, 2fs, 1cs, 3cp, 3mp, 2fp, 1cp, they're all exactly the same. The only differences are in the vowels and also in the dagesh, which is in the ayin letter. So this is where the paradigm letter pa'al just doesn't work to show us the PL or any of the ones in the PL family, because they all take a dagesh in the middle root letter. And that's why in modern times we don't use pa'al, but we use katal. So here we have yiktal. Now in the case of when there's a root that appears both in the kal and PL, typically then we show a more complicated meaning or an intensive meaning in PL. So if katal is he killed, then kitel is he slaughtered, or something like that. Again, I would encourage you, don't worry about these endings, you already know those, but pay attention to what else distinguishes the PL and sets it apart from the kal. And that would again especially be the dagesh doubling the ayin letter all through the PL paradigm. The third family of verb binyan is the hiphil family, and this is causal. And here you'll notice there's a couple of distinguishing features when compared with a call. What's the same? It has all of the same endings as the call does. So once we know the call, we know all the pronouns and how they work with hiphil. What we have to work at then is recognizing the difference between the call form and the hiphil form. And here you can see there's two main differences. There's the hey affixed to the beginning, and then a hiric yod appears in many of the forms, but not all the forms. You'll notice when there's a heavy ending with a tav or the like at the end of these, several of these words, then there is no hiric yod, it sort of collapses. But whenever there's a lighter ending, like hiktil, then we see the hiric yod in the middle. And so that's a secondary indicator. But the primary indicator is the hey that's affixed to the beginning. Now the sense of hiphil is causal. So in this case, if we have katal, we have he killed. Hiktil, he caused to kill, or he made to kill, something like that. Different sentences and different terms will function differently, but the causal works really well. Start out woodenly and then find a smoother way to make your translation. I want to take a moment and just caution us against overdoing it. Now, a lot of times we're tempted to always look for what's the sense in the call root call stem versus the PL stem. In some cases where there's a term that appears in both stems, like sin pe samek pe resh, safar means count. Siper, the PL, means to recount or to narrate. So here we have a more intensive meaning with the PL, and so we have a deeper sense to it, count and recount. But with the word bikesh, there is no call form of bikesh. Therefore, we don't make any special sense to it. It just means he sought or he was seeking, something like that. So we only have the more intensive when there's both a call and a PL form. Same thing is true in nifal, and we kind of have to go term by term. So if we take the term shamar, to keep or to guard, here in kal we have he kept, he guarded. And in nifal, nishmar would be he was guarded or he was kept. But in the case of the word lechem, lamed he chet mem, there is no kal form. Therefore, this doesn't get a passive sense. We just say, he battled or he fought. So again, just keep in mind that the sort of nuance that goes with the root only goes, with the stem, only goes with the stem when there's both a kal and the PL or nifal in that form. And then beyond that, kind of go term by term and see how the nuances work with that particular term. But the main caution here is don't overdo something just because it's in the PL or nifal form. Stem. Here's a series of examples of brief phrases featuring the different stems of the perfect verb. So here we have Asher asa Hashem Elohecha leFaro. And that we read as which the Lord your God has done to Pharaoh. And in this case, the kal perfect verb, asa, it's just very, very straightforward and simple. It's kal, it's light, and it doesn't have any extra things added to the verb root, so it's just a kal stem. Another example comes from Deuteronomy. El haaretz asher nishba le'avodecha. And this we would read, to the land which he has sworn to your ancestors. Now, in this case, here we can see that this is in the nifal stem because of the nun prefixed to the perfect verb. But because of the nature of the term shava, sworn, it's not passive or reflexive. It's just a straight up word. And so here we just say nishva. We would just translate it without any particular nuance. He has sworn. Here's an example. V'zot ha-mitzvah asher tziva Hashem Elochem. Now in this case we have, and this is the commandment which the Lord your God has commanded. Now again, we can see the PL form, tziva, and we can see it has the doubled root letter signified by the dagesh, but in this case, tzava just has a normal sense. We don't do anything different to it. It's just he has commanded, since there's not a counterpart call form of this word. One more example. Ba'et havi hivdil Hashem et shevet lavi. In that time, the Lord divided the tribe of Levi, or probably better, he set apart the tribe of Levi. Now, two very minor things here. First, remember in the Pentateuch that the 3FS pronoun, or in this case it uses demonstrative, that time, it's normally spelled he with a yod, but in the Pentateuch it's always spelled with the vav, but we just treat it as normal. In the time, that one, in that time. Then here, take note of the hiphil, and you can see that it has both the primary indicator, the he prefix, but it also has the hirik yod in the middle. And again, this term we would just translate, he has divided or he has set apart. So in that time, the Lord has set apart the tribe of Levi. Again, what you can see by looking across these examples is there is spelling differences and morphological differences between the kal stem and the nifal stem, pl stem, and hiphil stem, but there's not a real strong difference in terms of the meaning. So you have to go word by word and case by case. Sometimes there is a strong difference, but don't overdo it. That's not the main thing. But for parsing, we do have to recognize there are these other stems, and these are three of the main stem families that will run across stem sorts. Nifal, and then the pl, which is the head of the pl family, and hiphil, which is the head of the hiphil family.